This is a garage I had built in June of 2020 by Dencroft Garages Limited, who have several branches around Yorkshire. Their head office, I believe, is in Batley. A couple of days after the garage was built, I noticed that moisture was forming on many of the internal walls. I also noticed that when it was raining outside, there was a trickle of water running down the concrete slab immediately beneath the window. Of course, I phoned Denton Garages, explained the situation. They assured me they would get it fixed, and they sent somebody the next day with a tube of mastic to rectify the situation. I was also assured that the water actually on the concrete panels was the concrete curing, and this would continue for several weeks, if not months, and it was essentially not much to worry about. It would eventually resolve itself. Sadly, over the coming winter, the situation did not resolve itself. In fact, it got much worse. In November of 2020, I resorted to buying a dehumidifier, which cost around £240. And in the coming months, I spent many happy hours going out emptying the tank of the dehumidifier. It was collecting in excess of 4 litres of water every day, every evening that it was run. However, it became apparent in spring of 2021 the dehumidifier was fighting a losing battle, as evidenced by the mould growing on the shelves and even on the underside of the shelves. The mould was absolutely disgusting. It was obviously depositing spores everywhere. The whole atmosphere was very unhealthy. I didn't like to spend any time in there at all. And so at this stage I had already decided to contact Dencroft Garages to ask them to investigate what was going wrong. However, on the 18th of May 2021, things came to a head when I entered the garage to find evidence of not damp, not condensation, but actual flooding. In this photograph, we can see a powered loudspeaker stored on the shelving, which is actually full of water. And so I ended up having to take half a day off paid work in order to move all my vulnerable and expensive equipment out of harm's way, and also to try and investigate exactly where the water was coming from. And here's what I found. Looking at these roofing panels, you can see evidence of water ingress. You can see the dark patch just next to the join, which is obviously where it's still damp from the previous ingress of water. And again, a bit of a tide mark there where it's been wet and dried out again. This is a slightly better image. And this one doesn't look much, but it is absolutely clear evidence that water is getting in between the panels. Coming up next is a piece of video that I shot on the day. Right, well, it's raining outside, and here we are. That is damp coming in. It's not damp, it's water coming in right the way along there. I don't know what this roof is made of. It may as well be bloody cardboard. That is not waterproof. And we can see from the dehumidifier, which is fighting a losing battle, it's about 70% humidity in here, which is pretty bad. Here's the mouldy top of a shelf. As we go over there, we can see, yes, that part of the roofing is damp as well. and you can see it's starting to creep in there and there. So whatever this roof is made of, it is not waterproof. And this is near the main personnel door. There's damp getting in there. Let's come round here. So there's water trickling down there as well. I'll zoom in on that. There you go, water actually trickling in there. They're supposed to have fixed this bit once. Back in here again, it's the 21st of May. The damp is, or the wet I should say, is creeping its way very nicely along the porous roof. So all that is soaking wet up there. Let's have a look around the rest of the place. Yeah, wet creeping along there as well. Yep. Yep. No, that's not just damp creeping, that is water. That is actually water. Oops. That's water. It's not damp, it's not condensation. That is water leaking in. That's another patch of water coming in. This roof may as well be bloody Weetabix. It's absolutely useless. So, after a letter to Dencroft explaining the situation and explaining that I wasn't happy and I wanted the problems rectified, and I would also be looking for some compensation for the time, effort and the property that I have lost as a result of their poor work. An exchange of emails. They asked for photographs, which I duly sent. They asked for more photographs because they said they couldn't see the problem. So I sent more photographs with annotations to explain what they were looking at, and that message didn't get responded to for over a week until I spoke with the people at the Which Trusted Traders website. That seems to have made them sit up and take notice. Meanwhile, I examined the equipment that I have stored in this unit, and to my dismay found quite a lot of it was now suffering from mould growth, corrosion, rust. It's in a pretty bad way. This is an equipment soft carry case that is covered in mould. I've got two of these. Let's see what happens if I give it a good scrub. This is the second equipment case that's covered in mould and filth, and the top all mouldy, opening up. Looks like the microphones inside are okay. So I'm just going to take all the microphones out and give the case a wash. Meanwhile, every time we get a little bit of bad weather, I'm now keeping a check on the garage and finding more water ingress. So today is the 12th of June. I've just come into the garage to get some bits and pieces that I'm in need of, and I've come over to this plastic box full of my stock of screws and fixings and bits and bobs, and found out that basically it's now full of water. So all my stock of screws and bits and fixings and things are now pretty well ruined. So this is evidence of water ingress. This is not condensation, this is water leaking in from the roof above there. So straight down into there. Right, this is the box dragged outside, and I'm going to tip up one end and watch the water flow out. Okay, further video, and there's a box here that has got metalwork in it, and if we look down there we can see that that is full of water as well. So most of that metalwork is probably trashed now, and that metalwork is important, particularly this racking metalwork here, which costs a lot of money. Here's another small piece of video shot on the 15th of June 2021. Okay, with apologies for vertical video, we're looking up at the roof of the garage, and if I move the camera up as close as possible to the roof, I'm absolutely certain that I'm not supposed to be able to see daylight between the roofing panels. So that's where there's one obvious gap. There's another obvious gap coming up here, you can see. So very clear daylight there. Move along. See daylight between those. If you can see daylight between the roofing panels, then it seems to me that the roof cannot possibly be watertight. There we are again. And that is the gap directly above where the loudspeakers were stored, which filled with water and are now, of course, completely ruined. Okay, it's Friday the 25th of June. I've just come in to see how things are developing in the garage, and if we have a look up there we can see still it's raining outside at the moment, and much of that water is finding its way into the garage. It's not even raining particularly heavy. I think it's been raining since early this morning, and not particularly heavy, but the water is definitely soaking in through there. Around the other side of the garage, not as bad. We can still see definite signs of seepage starting. As I said, it's not raining heavily outside, it's just sort of wet and miserable. So you can see that the seepage is still starting to come in there. And in the centre of the garage, where the roofing panels overlap, we're definitely getting signs of seepage there. And definitely there. Definitely there. So zooming out so you can see everything in context. Not brilliant, is it? So purely for context, I thought I would just shoot a bit of video outside just to show how heavy the rain is or isn't just so that you can get a clear view. There's a puddle down there. Let's have a look at raindrops. So hardly any. It's a typical British summer's day. So you can see it's been raining, as you can see from the car. I'll come round to the outside of the garage, and in fact I'll even hold the camera up to the sky for a few seconds, and I'll bring it down. You'll see there's no major drops of rain falling on. So it's I think it's what the Scots would call dreich. It's dreary and miserable. Coming round to the eaves at the back. So it's a pretty horrid day, but it's not by any means a storm or heavy rain. It's just a very typical summer's day of rain. And again, back over in the workshop side of the garage. That's definitely decidedly wet. Starting to come in there. Oops. Yep, that's decidedly wet over there. And zooming out again, so you can see stuff in context. I'd say this garage is about as waterproof as the average colander. This is near the entrance. So yeah, water seeping in there. And there, directly above the entrance. And on the same day, same time-ish, coming in on there, we've got about 83% relative humidity. Let's go and check the other meter over here. Okay, 77% according to that, and about 80% according to that. So somewhere in the region of 80% relative humidity in here, and my crop of fungus is coming on lovely. So what we're seeing there is what looks to me like a tide mark of where water has pooled on the top shelf. Where this box was, I've just recently, oh god. So yeah, I think it's fairly obvious there, water's pooled there, and that's caused mould growth. Coming down here, same there, and coming down onto this shelf, once again, absolutely obvious signs of where water's pooled. That's pretty disgusting. And so which is all, of course, directly below where there's a whacking great gap in the roof and signs of water coming through. Okay, today is the 29th of June. I should just put a light on so we can see. A gentleman from Dencroft Garages has been, and he has injected a load of silicone sealant into between the roofing panels. So as we can see right the way along there, and over towards the workshop side, and so that's looking quite decent, and I'll flip over to the other side, show you what's happened over there. And this is round the other side, so you can see there's a substantial amount of silicone sealant being injected in there. And over towards the window. And on the rear of the garage, they've now actually installed some guttering to carry the water away from the wall, which is good. And we can also see on the top he's put some extra fastenings in to prevent the roofing material lifting in any wind. Okay, I'm about to start work now on ripping out all these warped and mouldy shelves, and I'm just zooming in on areas because the owner of the company, who came to visit a couple of weeks ago, was insistent that this was just dust. It's quite clearly not dust, it's mould. It's really obvious to anybody that it is mould, not dust. And then also, if we move the camera upwards to look at the undersides of shelves, then again, dust doesn't generally collect on the underside of shelves, so we can see quite clearly there. I'm getting very close, and you can see this colonies. That's fungus. It's mould as a result of the damp conditions. There's no way that's dust. So I think somebody's clutching at straws, shall we say. So another bit of video here just to show the degree to which these shelving panels have warped. If I move along there, you can see they've risen up at the ends. And they've warped downwards where there's been a bit of weight on them while they've been wet. And then we move along there, we can see another bit there, and we'll come around and you can clearly see there where it's bent upwards at the end. Well, it's bent up in the middle but down at the edges, because they've had some weight on them while they've been wet, and obviously that's how they've dried. Here I've just added a few more photographs of the equipment that's been ruined. Some PV loudspeakers and some Behringer powered speakers. As you can see, they are in a complete and utter mess with mould and fungus everywhere.